So let's say I met the SDGs 2 years ago. I was in my MUN club doing research, and I stumbled upon these 17 goals, and it was remarkable for me because I noticed that there was I was doing MUN for more than 2 years, and I didn't know UN had such big goals, such important goals for all of us. So when I found out about them, I made some research, and turns out they are totally interconnected, and they aim to improve everyone and everything in this world. So it was great, and I discovered MUN Impact through that. I started joining their programs, and turns out the youth can take action towards these SDGs, and we can improve the world really quickly as the youth. So I just started doing MUN at home and other MUN impact activities. And this made me realize that by raising awareness, we can turn everything around, actually. So thank you to everyone for coming here, and I'm giving the floor back to Rita.
Thank you, DEFNE. That was wonderful. So now I'm introducing Jaideep Singh, who has been the moderator for all open forums so far. Big shoes to fill in. Jaideep Singh is currently the head of Online Model United Nations, or OMUN, program at MUN Impact. And prior to this, he served as the first Secretary-General of MUN at Home, where I believe he's still the program head as well. Prior to this, he served as the first secretary, a novel program which grew exponentially in the time of COVID-19 pandemic as one of the largest SDG education initiatives across the globe. He has been involved in MUN circuit for over 5 years, with its roots in Doha, Qatar, where he served as a chair several times, as well as the Deputy Secretary-General of THIMUN Qatar 2019, the largest MUN conference in the Middle East with over 2,000 participants. In October 2020, he was nominated by MUN Impact to be the Youth Moderator for the International Day of Peace Observance, IDP, organized by the UN Department of Global Partnerships in the presence of the Secretary-General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. Jaideep is a strong believer in the Sustainable Development Goals as a tool to catalyze ground-level action driven by community involvement. He's especially enthusiastic about education, sustainable cities and energy, and believes that scientific studies and engineering should be governed by the SDG-driven policies to achieve real change in society. Outside of doing Model UN, Jaideep is a chemical engineering student at NTU Singapore, and is involved in research around computational catalytic development. He's an aspiring academic, an avid reader, and involved hands-on with the daily functioning of MUN Impact and its programs. Take it away, Jaideep.
Now I realize whenever I introduce a panelist and they tell me they're overwhelmed by introductions, how it feels. So thank you, Rita, for that introduction. And thank you to everyone joining in today. It's great to be on the other side for once. And it's great to have all the panelists here, all my colleagues at MUN Impact, and all the participants here joining in good numbers. So it's great to have you all here today. So the theme we're talking about today is simply something which I think all of us have heard. We are at MUN Impact. We've all heard about this. We've all talked about this. We've all had numerous discussions about this. And that is how to use MUN as a method to advance the SDGs. Now, let me give you a very small example to understand how that is a relevant discussion. So let's say the SDGs are made, and let's say this is a real life scenario. So the SDGs were made. The UN used the SDGs as a starting point to kind of grow in different spheres so that it's a targeted growth. But before the SDGs, does anyone know what goals we had? You can type it on the chat. I'd love to have some engagement here. Anyone who knows which goals we had before the SDGs? The Millennium Goals, correct. So we had the Millennium Development Goals and they timed out. And why they timed out is simple. It's because the UN did not engage with the youth, or at least any initiatives with the youth were very minimal. And because of that very reason, when the SDGs were introduced, one thing which the United Nations organization realized is that if we want these goals to be driven, we need youth involvement. And one of the best ways of this youth involvement is Model United Nations. So for that very simple reason, MUN is probably the best catalyst for you to reach out to the youth to develop the goals. And that's the simple reason why MUN is so important for the goals. It's one way the UN, the actual proprietor of the goals, can connect to the youth and drive those goals. And in how many ways can you connect with the youth? It's not just one way. It's not because students are representing countries. It's not because you are having mock debates. It's simply because as you sit in these debates representing countries, you are learning yourself. And when you learn things yourself, you take it back home. You take it back home, you implement it in your communities. You implement it in your communities, you make change. That's simply how MUN drives the goals. Now, people fail to understand this. I have had so many conversations with people saying, how can a mock UN help drive goals? And I'll tell you how it helps drive goals. It helps drive education towards the goals. And as it helps drive education towards the goals, you have action towards the goals. And MUN Impact is a living example of this whole idea I've just mentioned. If I take the example of MUN at Home, which is something I was privileged to be a part of for a year, we simply educated students on the goals, ran a training session for a month on those goals, and we culminated with a debate on that goal. So what did we do? We taught students about the goals. We helped them research on the goals. We helped them learn about the goals, and then we helped them debate on the goals. So this education process is just one element of the numerous ways MUN can help develop the goals. And this is like just an introductory talk. So I'd say that this is one way I strongly feel about how MUN can develop the goals. And I'd love to take the conversation forward with any specific questions, but I hope to have some good engagement with the participants as well. Thank you very much for joining in, and I'll see you around. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jaideep. So now we're going to move on to Mostafa. Mostafa is a director of University Online Model UN, or UNI-OMUN, and co-deputy Secretary-General of the region for University MUN Impact, or UNI-MUNI, as we call it here. He has 7 years of excellent Model UN experience as delegate, a moderator, a chair, a trainer, a club and conference advisor. He has completed Directors Training Institute Certification Level 2, Advancing Student Leadership, to become a certified Model UN director in 2019. Mostafa, take it away.
Thank you, Rita. As my colleague said, sorry, MUN Conference can actually help, and the MUN clubs can also actually contribute towards developing the goals, and education is one of the most important one. Because imagine, if you want to do something, you need to learn something, and MUN conferences and MUN clubs are the organizations or the clubs that helps you to learn. And if you can learn yourself how to do MUN, if you learn how the international relations work, if you know MUN, then you know how the SDGs were formed, you know how the SDGs have been shaped on, and how further the countries has reached towards achieving these goals, and what the UN leaders and the officials of your countries have done so far to develop the country. So you learn all these things when you do MUN, because normally, for example, if you're studying science or if you study commerce or any other things, you focus on those studies and you don't really check the newspaper a lot, or you don't check other sources of information. But when you go to a conference, you not only check about your country that was assigned to you, but you also check about your allies, like what your neighboring country is doing, what your other countries that are not have a good relation with you are doing in terms of the development. So once you get the knowledge, then the part comes where you are going to implement the knowledge, and either you're going to come together as your school club to organize something, or even you're the one who can do something by yourself. Like I met a lot of students who are my colleagues and my friends in other MUN conferences who has taken actions, and they are now social entrepreneurs. They have been doing a lot of activities. They are now activists. So education is, I believe, what I believe is the first stage of taking action. And then you are going to take action after you are educated. And MUN Conference and clubs are the first stage you can take action, and you can learn a lot about MUN and SDGs as well. Well, I'm looking forward to have a fruitful discussion on this. This was an introduction. So I give the presentation back to Rita.
Thank you so much. So next up, we are going to Matthew. Matthew's passion for student leadership and the Sustainable Development Goals was first kindled through participation in Model UN. Since then, he has sought out and obtained numerous opportunities to advance his interests, especially through MUN Impact. As the current Co-Secretary-General of MUN Impact and Secretary-General of SDG Hubs, he has been afforded an enriching experience in leadership for grassroots and student action. Matt, take it away.
Thanks for the welcome, Rita. To, I guess, kind of kick off today's discussion, I want to, well, first of all, thank my colleagues who are on this panel today. All the sentiments that have been shared up until this point could not have been stated any better. And I think it really shows the unity we have from all our different departments and programs when it comes to achieving our unified goal of advancing the SDGs and Model UN. So going back to, I guess, one of the main discussion points we had earlier is, so what are the SDGs? Looking at all 17 and just seeing at it from like a global citizen's perspective, those are some ambitious goals. For example, you've got SDG 1, which is no poverty. And then you have, I believe SDG 7, which is reduced inequalities. So these are all very ambitious goals, all meant to tackle some of the largest problems of our day and generation. And why are they so ambitious? I think it's because that perfectly encapsulates the spirit of youth. The feeling of being able to aim for the stars and maybe not reach there, but at least hit the moon, is really captured through the ambitiousness and the amount of dedication from the international community that has been shown towards the SDGs. So in that sense, the SDGs are all about youth. It's that same feeling, that same sentiment of, being willing to just forge ahead and accomplish some of these very big goals is precisely what youth are trained to do, or what we encourage youth to do. And so that being said, Model UN as a youth activity is the perfect medium to advance that cause. And we do it every day here at MUN Impact, especially through the different programs that we oversee. For example, within Muni Global, which is our largest outreach organ, we spend every single day reaching out to schools, conferences, companies, other civil society organizations, and we convince them to say, hey, the work you're doing, the goals that you have are perfectly aligned with the SDGs. And here's what we can do to achieve them together, be it by hosting a joint seminar, a joint workshop, conference, and little by little, all of these little actions just add up. And what we're really doing is doing our part to create a global community of people who are very conscious and actively working towards achieving the SDGs. And fundamentally, that polymer, that glue that brought us all together is unmistakably Model UN. So very much looking forward to dig deep in today's discussion and continue to discuss ways in which Model UN can impact our work in achieving the SDGs.
Thank you so much, Matt. Now that we have exhausted our opening remarks and introductions, we will begin the open forum itself, the debate. So we already have some guiding questions, and those I'm looking forward to discuss those, but those are not the only questions that will be asked that we can discuss. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we will let you ask them. So to start, I think you guys already answered the first question. How can MUN support Agenda 2030 and drive change for the SDGs, right? So I think we're going to jump to another question. What can MUN delegates do to drive change? So, so we can kind of change the order a little bit. I'm going to start with Mostafa. What do you think delegates can do to support Agenda 2030 and drive change for the SDGs?
It's a good question, Rita, and I believe there is so many opportunities for delegates to do contribute in the Agenda 2030. First of all, let's start with SDG conference. So there is two types of MUN conference you can have. One is the regular MUN conference where you have the regular topic, for example, historical Security Council or Security Council where you talk about the regular topics, but you can also have SDG-based MUN conference where you're going to discuss about SDG-related topics. For example, in one of the committee, you're going to talk about climate change. And the best part is, like, for example, in one of the conferences where I attended as a chair, we were discussing about the climate, and after the end of the conference, we had service projects. So we purchased a lot of trees and we plant them in designated areas. And after 10 years, after 15 years, these trees will grow bigger and they will contribute to the society. And that was done as part of the environment action. Now, there are different other service actions delegates can take. For example, you can go to a sea beach and then you can clean the beach, you can clean the plastic, you can collect the plastic, send them to the companies who recycle them, and then you are changing the environment as well. So for each of the committees that discuss different SDGs, for example, you are discussing about some social change or social entrepreneurship or any other SDG related. For example, you're talking about education. There are certain organizations where I work, for example, JAGO, it's one of the biggest volunteering organizations and also charity organizations that built an online school that was 10 years ahead, 10 years before now. And then they used to provide online education. All the teachers were university students and graduates as well, postgraduate students, and they used to provide education by the help of BRAC NGO. So these are all the delegates. There were delegates of different MUN conferences that came together and then they discussed, hey, what can we do and what are we actually learning from MUN conferences? Like, we come here on the first day, we debate, and then we bring up a resolution, then we go back home. But then what can we actually take away from the MUN conferences? So we can take away certain things. For example, like at the end of the day, when you're discussing about Palestinian history or the question of Palestine or the situation in the Middle East, imagine you are a participant of Security Council and then you receive the topic, the question of Palestine. Even before debating, you know what will be the outcome of the Security Council. The resolution will fail because that is a certain topic. But if you debate about SDGs, you learn new ways how to implement certain things in your community. And you don't need to go big, because imagine you're living in a country, where there is a huge number of population. Each one of you, if you start planting a tree, or each one of you decide to do a small service action, and together combining all the population, it will be a huge amount of work done by your country. And now, if you ask me, like, why would you do it? I mean, then I can ask you, like, what is government? Government is nothing. Government is you. You are going to the next government. Someone of your age will be the next prime minister, the minister, and all of them. And the government consists of a small amount of people, and they are elected by us, or if it's monarchy, then it's different. But they are not going to take action all by themselves. Like, we have to help them, like the NGOs, the private organizations, the public organizations, even the students. Everyone has a role, because this is only one planet and there is no plan B. This is the planet and we have to survive this. Unless Elon Musk becomes successful, then we can habitate the Mars. But until that, we have to build the community. And that's why I believe SDG conferences can help students come up with different solutions, how they can start within their community, even if it's in a small amount of work done.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. I definitely agree that there are two types of MUN conferences, and that work needs to be put into creating like MUN conferences where students can take something from those MUN conferences. And I think that's the sentiment behind MUN Impact as an organization. And also another recurring topic from our open forums, your actions don't need to be big so long as you take action. So great points, excellent points. We'll now move on to Matthew.
Okay, so if we're talking about, how MUN students can better support the SDGs, I think it really starts with a mindset shift. So growing up and, first getting into I would like to say the sport of Model UN, there's this sense of competitiveness, almost combativeness, where you go into a debate and you're like, I'm gonna get best delegate, I'm gonna get best position paper. I'm gonna call out every single other delegate who doesn't agree with me, and they're gonna look like fools on this debating platform. And suffice it to say, that's not how consensus building works. That's not how you have constructive debate. And it is somewhat of a real problem in most MUN circuits where this has become the norm. In fact, in my school club, where where I got my first start as an MUN debater, we have something called POI piracy, is where a delegate uses points of information with not the intent to clarify or to better understand another delegate's position, but rather to attack them and to try and poke holes in their arguments and logic. And we call that POI piracy because it's such a pervasive practice and a bad one at that. So, okay, the mindset shift starts, number one, with ending this sense of competitiveness, and going into a MUN debate thinking, I'm gonna communicate, I'm gonna communicate, I'm gonna connect with my fellow human beings in this room, and we're gonna, put ourselves in the shoes of the world's diplomats, ambassadors, policymakers, and we're gonna brainstorm next generation solutions to age-old problems. That is how, we should be conducting our debates, and this is the mindset we should all adopt as students. And secondly, another, I guess, kind of practice a personal commitment that I think a lot of MUN delegates can make is to, because we make these resolutions at the end of every debate, and these resolutions are highly complex. They're literally like, a playbook for policymakers, write in new laws, sign new treaties, place limits on carbon emissions. Like, these are all big ticket items, not necessarily things that an individual person can put into effect. And that's okay. It's perfectly fine to dream big and to have these big ideas about how our politicians, our think tankers, our policymakers should be reacting to our world's issues. But in addition to just writing down all these big ticket items, I would like to encourage every MUN delegate to look at that big, like 8-pager of resolution points and say, what is one little thing that I can do to help make this resolution a reality? Whether that means, forming a coalition, a grassroots coalition to convince a congressperson or some other elected representative to, make an effective change, or simply just, donating cans of food or volunteering your time at a soup kitchen. Stuff like that is so important because that translates our MUN way of thinking, our problem-solving thinking, and it translates that into tangible action. So those are really the two ways I would start to encourage MUN students to broaden their impact on the SDGs.
Those are absolutely amazing points. And it's true that we often go into debates being like, I'm going to win this, I'm going to win this, and I'm going to do it by being, dishonest. I'm not going to try and doing a productive debate in front and like on top of my priorities. I'm going to put winning there. And I'll do so by, just POI pirating and other strategies that there are in MUN to kind of try and win this, like as a blood sport, as Ms. Martin was saying. I think those are absolutely amazing points. And with that, I think we should move on to DEFNE.
All right, thank you. So first of all, a thing that's generally discussed is like raising awareness and educating others. If you are trying to be impactful as a student. So these are absolutely great ways. So for raising awareness, MUN is a networking place for me. So when you go to a conference, you meet lots and lots of people who share like similar ideas with you. So when you follow them on social media, when you see them in the streets, maybe that's a way to do networking. And you might be in similar places. So when you have an issue, when you're as a student trying to build a startup project, it is a great way to just message your friends that you know via MUN and just get their opinions and support on a project. And also with education, like in MUN, you make a lot of research, and they need to be from like official sites, and they need to be like concrete information. And you get those information if you are preparing for a conference. So when you see someone who is not educated enough on a subject, you can just like message them and talk with them. So at least you will have a little bit of a contribution to this world. Like if you see someone who is an anti-vaxxer, you can educate them about the policies and like scientific data, and that would save lives, especially during this time. However, another important thing is MUN is not just about raising awareness, educating others. Like, yes, but sometimes this can be seen as something passive. However, there are some things that you can really like actively do. In every MUN, we write resolutions together as students, and they contain, as Matt said, really great information and data for most of the lawmakers. So there are actually challenges like UNHCR's Refugee Challenge, where you can submit your resolutions and it will be read by UN officials or someone who can make an impact as an adult, who can reach more people than you. So you can use these mediums to also make an impact. It's not just about your personal impact, but you can reach out to other people so they can make an impact for you. That would be all.
Thank you, DEFNE. Yeah, one of the things that I've been getting the most from, panelists on these open forums is that their biggest advice for youth often is creating a network and getting a network of people that they can work on projects on the SDGs with. And that is like one of the most valuable things you can do as a young person who's trying to achieve change. And yeah, that thing on, you have mediums where often you can, present resolutions that came from MUN to big shot politicians and etc. Yeah, that's completely true. And that's one of the things MUN Impact does sometimes. We have WashPap, we're presenting next, if you guys want to join. And the resolution from WashPap is going, hopefully, to the General Assembly. That's what people are trying to do. So it is absolutely possible to have your resolution be considered by stakeholders, as long as you find the right programs for that. So next up, we are going to have Jaideep giving his insight about this.
Everything they said. Basically, I don't have, I have very less value addition, but pretty much everything they said is something I completely agree with. And I'd probably try to just summarize what they kind of said. So when I go into an MUN conference, it's been a while, but when I went to an MUN conference in my very early days, I will not lie, being a saint here, but I was equally competitive. So I'd go in, try to shut everyone down, say I'm the best, and come out winning supreme. But as you go along, as you mature your mindset through this sort of space, you realize that there's much more you learn. And Matthew mentioned something very, very crucial, and that is consensus building. That is very lacking in a lot of our competitive MUN circuits, and that defeats the purpose of this program. So the idea of even the actual UN is to actually sit down, come up with a solution together, not to shut everybody down. And if we are going with that mindset, we're not going to reach anywhere. So that's one very crucial point made there. The second thing is, and I want to ask our audience here, since they've been rather quiet, you can put this on the chat. Do you think we can achieve the SDGs by 2030? I think it's a very easy answer. Definitely. Okay. No. Yes. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, no. Shoot for the stars, at least you'll reach the moon. Okay. So I'll give you my perspective on this. I'm a rather practical person, and I'd say we can't. But with that said, I agree with what Matthew said. If you can't reach for the stars, if you can't reach the moon, at least you'll reach the stars. So you reach somewhere, right? And if you don't start something, you'll not reach anywhere. Because the goals are so broad, it's rather difficult to meet them in a 10-year span. But if we don't start now, keep procrastinating, we're just going to become university students living on coffee. We are not going to do anything except procrastinate. So if you want to reach somewhere, we've got to start somewhere. Where do we start? We start by educating ourselves. So that's where MUN comes in. So an MUN delegate learns in a conference. And then once he or she leaves that conference, then they have the opportunity to go in two paths. So they can either take up a short-term goal or they can take up a long-term goal. A short-term goal would be to involve with your community. Do very small things. So I started a YouTube channel teaching people in my colloquial language. And I have done this. So I started doing this and it started off with like 10 people watching those videos. Now I think it's 8,000 people. So you start small, start in your community. It'll grow eventually. And the second thing is you can focus on a long-term goal. Now, in my perspective, I'm a scientist, or at least I'm an aspiring scientist. And what I do is I study catalysts. What do catalysts do? To make renewable energy. Now, I'm not going to do that today, am I? But I'm not going to do that next year or 2 years from now. It's going to be a very long process, but you work towards that process. And I have not studied political science. So a lot of people have this perception that MUN is to do with political science or anything related to politics. It does not have anything to do with politics. If you know MUN, you learn communication, you learn advocacy, you learn action, and you learn how to put that into your daily life. That's what MUN teaches you with the SDGs. And you can correlate that with any profession whatsoever, nothing to do with being in politics. So yes, if you are interested in politics, by all means, go into policy change. But if you're someone who's interested in the sciences, in teaching, in anything else, don't think the SDGs don't help you. They help you regardless of where you go. They help you become a better global citizen. That's all they do. So what does an MUN delegate learn or take away? They learn these goals and how to become a better global citizen in any profession they work in. And then from there, they can either take the short-term track or the long-term track. And in essence, you basically go into a cycle. And what I like to call the cycle is the advocacy, communication, action cycle. So what you do is you start off with advocacy, or you start off with communication, let's say. You're in an MUN conference, you're communicating with others. Now people hear your ideas. Or if you may be someone in that audience, you're hearing someone's ideas. Then you advocate those ideas, and then you promote action on those ideas. So it can be your own ideas, it can be someone else's ideas, but then this becomes a cycle. And that's what an MUN delegate does best. Either the short-term or the long-term track, but that's what you take away from MUN. Advocacy, communication, and being able to take that track in your community and in a long-term perspective. So that's what MUN delegates should do. And I pretty much summarized what everyone else in my panel has said, but thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, my video went down, but I'm back now. So we have, first of all, I completely agree. Advocacy, communication, those are universal skills and skills and, teaches everyone. So if you go through Module 1, you may do one conference, you may do 15 conferences, you're going to learn always something about communication and advocacy and diplomacy, which are such useful skills in your day-to-day life. So we have 15 minutes until the end of this open forum. So I'm going to jump on to our next question. When Ms. Martin started OMUN, no one believed it was a good idea. Now there are hundreds of online programs. How should MUN Impact position itself as a leader in this field? So we are going to start with DEFNE.
Thank you, Rita. First of all, can you please rephrase the question a little bit?
Yeah, so how can MUN Impact establish themselves as a leader in online debates and as an SDG education course that organization that works with MUN to advance the SDGs? That's a way to rephrase it, I guess.
Thank you. So first of all, I think the key was being with the youth, because youth is always creative, and I believe we can come up with like quick solutions more easily in these days. So when you work with a lot of similar-minded young people, you can just find some solutions, and you can start building some network. And MUN Impact did that. Firstly, they, I guess they had a bunch of people, like 10 people at first, and they started saying, look, we have this program and this event, please join us. And when you use peer education, I think that's quite effective, because I think even in our daily lives, when we are studying for exams, when you study with your peers, it is really effective. And it is like in a place you have a teacher saying you need to do this and do that. And it is kind of like a environment with a little bit of a pressure. But when you're with your friends, you have an opportunity to grow with them, and you are free to say what you want. And everybody has some kind of inexperience in fields and some insecurities about maybe talking in public. So it is a more open space, and MUN Impact provided that to students. And I believe when students saw this free and safe space, they started inviting their friends and maybe families into this community. And then there were people like myself who came up with other programs and who helped as organizers in programs. And that way we were able to reach out to more people, especially for me, I am the SGO of MUN, which is the French derivative of MUN was established for a few months then, but when you build another program in a different language, there are more opportunities and more people you can reach out to. So I especially want to put emphasis on this. Having different languages in MUN is really important when like some people in the world don't know English, like most of the people in the world don't know English. And when you do this in a local language, people are open and they can express themselves more easily. So in my opinion, MUN Impact, when it gets bigger, it gets more impactful. And when it gets more impactful, it gets bigger.
That is such a great answer. I love that end phrase. When MUN gets bigger, it gets more impactful, and when it gets more impactful, it gets bigger. So as we're running short on time, we're going to jump to, I think, Jaideep again. Sorry to put you always on the spot, Jaideep.
Yep, hi. So I completely agree on the language element that DEFNE just mentioned. In fact, one of the participants just sent me a private message with a question on that what are your views on the English dominance? And I can say I'm not a native English speaker, but it's definitely true that even in my home country, a lot of people don't speak English. And if we do develop programs which are not English dominant, it's going to impact a greater community of this earth, and that achieves our purpose better. So completely agree with DEFNE's last message. Absolutely agree with that. Now, coming to the main question on OMUN and how it can impact, and I mean impacting can develop the SDGs and all that kind of thing. I can tell you this. So I've worked with Lisa Martin for for as long as I can remember. So 4 years, 4.5 years. And when I met her for the first time, she had this program going on in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, now the situation there has been dire, but she had this program in Afghanistan called Hope for Education and Leadership in Afghanistan. And they were already working towards education and hope and MUN in a very troubled environment. And MUN Impact wasn't in existence at the time. So MUN Impact has been there from before MUN Impact officially became MUN Impact. So in essence, we have been driving SDGs for as long as we can remember. But because now we are a more consolidated, larger community, the power of this community has grown exponentially. Because now you're not limited to 1 or 2 or 3 reasons. You've expanded to a larger audience, and that's showing on the ground. We had Afghanistan, we had Nigeria, we've had talks in India, we have had partners in India working at the ground level, we have had partners in other parts of Asia working at the ground level, Africa working at the ground level. So we have actually expanded our horizons more than any other youth organization I can think of today, at least from an MUN perspective. And that is our biggest power. It's our connected youth network. And this has been in the pandemic. And I think the pandemic has been a boon for us, at least in that sense, that it has connected all of us into this large, well-knit community. That's the power we have. And on that point, I'd like to bring what DEFNE said again. We can actually exploit this network in using it for cutting across language barriers. We do not need to stay dormant in English. We can grow into any language we want. Shavu is an example. Inkaza is an example. The one in Arabic is an example. We also had I remember when I was SG, we even had a proposal for doing it in Urdu, which is the language of Pakistan. Unfortunately, we didn't go ahead with it because logistically we didn't have the resources, but there we go. We've had that as well. So we have that network. We have that community. We all need to just develop it. I'll just conclude it there.
That's wonderful. Those are great remarks and thoughts. So moving on over to Matthew.
Absolutely wanted to echo the sentiments shared by DEFNE and Jaideep. It's safe to say that by sheer merit of it existing, MUN Impact has significantly removed barriers of access when it comes to Model UN. Just by running OMUN, by running MUN at Home, by transitioning to a fully virtual form of hosting MUN debates, that alone has made MUN debating accessible to so many more people. And so that being said, when we're thinking about how we can better position ourselves in this post-COVID world of MUN, where basically everyone and their mother is doing MUN virtual debates, so what exactly does that mean? In the same spirit of cooperation, in the same spirit of consensus building that members of this panel spoke on in the previous question, MUN Impact positioning itself for this next generation of Model UN is not about staying ahead of the game, but rather holding true to our commitment that we have made since the 90s, since the early 2000s, that age-old commitment to make virtual MUN accessible to everyone. So what exactly does that mean? It's just 2 very simple things in my opinion. So number 1, it means refining our tools and our capabilities that allow us to engage with other conferences. So being in MUNI Global, being the Secretary-General of our outreach program is the perfect example of that. We form partnerships with a ton of schools, clubs, conferences, and when we do so, we offer them our resources, our expertise, our human resources and talent to help them develop their own organizations, as well as give back by contributing to the SDGs. And these tools include, very personalized mentorship, as well as resources when it comes to hosting MUN debates and conferences, educational resources in the form of our story maps and MUN at Home. So what this means is that in the coming months, in the coming years, we need to constantly update. We need to constantly update, revise, and innovate new ways to improve our engagement with our partners. And that continues to help us build a collaborative network of organizations from all over the world And that can ensure that MUN Impact is continuing to make key movements and progressions in helping us achieve the SDGs. And one last thing is also, as we move into this new era of technology, IT, and software development, it's also time to think about how we can integrate STEM with Model UN. And Jaideep is the perfect example of that, being a chemical engineer and a future scientist. And I'm sure he can offer a lot of viewpoints on this. But one way MUN Impact can continue to lead the global community for Model UN and the SDGs is to find new formats of debating, find new ways to imbue the traditional, very dry academic MUN with something a little more vibrant, be that, STEM, be that multilingual opportunities, whatever it is, to continue to find ways to democratize the whole atmosphere, and try out new innovations. As long as we can accomplish those two things, I think MUN Impact's future is assured.
Yeah, that's true. And our network is really our net worth in this case. And in net worth, we don't mean money, but we mean impact here in MUN Impact. Those are great remarks. So we're running short on time. We will hear from Mostafa, and then we will finish this open forum. So Mostafa, take it away.
Thank you, Rita, and excellent points from my colleagues, Jaideep, DEFNE, Matthew. They all summarized everything. Well, MUN Impact is a community of over 25,000 people from 167 countries. So you can see we are a growing community, and we have been growing since then. And we have 65 club partners in 32 countries and 17 conference partners. So we are actually creating an impact, not only in 1-2 countries, but in most of the countries. And we are hoping forward that in the upcoming years, we will grow bigger and bigger. And through our free online courses, whether it's middle school or high school or university level, we are going to empower more and more students. We are going to encourage students to take actions through education and through our conferences and our summits and our programs. So MUN Impact not only helps the students to grow, but also gives them a way how they can improve themselves. For example, in our programs, we have in all our debates, we have mentors. Whenever students are struggling what to say or what to speak or what to ask, we always mentor them. And in our mentorship programs, for monthly mentorship programs, we have mentors where we teach them how to do it. So we are not like any other MUN conferences or any other MUN programs or any other MUN clubs. We will say, one unique organizations where we are helping and shaping tomorrow's future, because students are next generations and we are the future of tomorrow. So we are actually developing tomorrow's future, and we hope we are going to do that continuously, and we are going to create change for the sustainable development goals. Thank you.
Yeah, those are great remarks and great points, and I agree with absolutely everything the panelists have said so far. So while I would love to entertain closing remarks, we unfortunately do not have time for that. So in behalf of MUN Impact, the Secretariat, the leadership team of the summit, and everyone really, I'd like to thank all of our panelists. Big round of applause, of Zoom applause to them. They were great, and they're great at just running the programs they run. So to close this plenary, thank you so much to everyone who attended this open forum and the summit in general. We now have our last session of the summit coming up, which is the WashPap session. You can still RSVP for that. And after that, we have social hour, which you can also RSVP for. After that, our help desk also runs until 22 UTC. So if this left you inspired to join MUN Impact, join MUN at Home, drive change for the SDGs while doing Model UN, you can absolutely visit our help desk, and they'll give you the links for that. So thank you so much to everyone who joined, and I hope to see you in other sessions. Thank you. Bye, everyone. I'm closing the room.